So I've been meaning to make this video since the beginning of summer when I found out about Nikon's mirrorless cameras, but I just haven't had a ton of time between shooting and teaching and my family and all of that stuff. But I did want to give you guys my thoughts on these two cameras before they're available for purchase in November. First off, this is not Nikon's first mirrorless interchangeable lens camera. This little guy, the J1, came out years ago and I snagged one just for fun. They were pretty cheap, they were small, but they have a tiny little sensor. And if you don't know why having a small image sensor is not a good thing, check out my video about crop frame versus full frame cameras. Nikon's been making full frame cameras for years, ever since the D3, I believe. So they're not new to full frame and they're not new to mirrorless, but this is the first time they've combined them. And what they did is they released two different cameras, the Z6 and the Z7. The Z6 is for sports and low light. The Z7 is for high megapixel, lots of detail, also huge file sizes. So I'm just going to talk about the benefits of mirrorless in general, and then specifically Nikon's two new cameras. So for decades, cameras have been using what's called an optical viewfinder. It uses prisms and mirrors and all kinds of weird things to bend and bounce the light from your lens right here up through, bounces it around, and out the viewfinder here. It uses no batteries, it doesn't require power, and it's all optical. But with a mirrorless camera, there's no mirrors, which means in order to see what your camera sees, there has to be power to the camera. There are good things and bad things about no mirror. Obviously, without a mirror, you're saving space, you're saving weight, so the camera can be a little bit smaller. But a downside is in order to view your image, there has to be power to your image sensor, and there has to be power to a tiny little screen that's inside your viewfinder. It's no longer optical. What it is it's just like viewing the image on the back of your camera, except it's a tiny little screen inside the viewfinder. So that means the battery is going to run out a lot quicker. Just ask any videographer how many batteries they go through on a wedding day. With an optical viewfinder, you're seeing exactly what is going on outside of your camera because it's all optical. It's the light coming and bouncing through. There's no electronics, nothing is altered. But with an electronic viewfinder, you're seeing exactly what your sensor is seeing, which means that what you're seeing in your electronic viewfinder is what your final image will look like. So if you're adjusting your shutter, your aperture, your ISO, you see that represented when you're looking through your camera. So this means you're probably going to have more keepers and you're not guessing and checking like with an optical viewfinder. And there are a few things I wanted to talk about specifically with the Z6 and Z7. One reason I'm so excited about these is that they can use the traditional f-mount lenses with an adapter. This kind of defeats the purpose because it makes the camera bigger, but I can use all of my expensive glass with that camera. I'm really excited to be able to shoot silently. That's no noise at all, because we've been in some huge churches before where there's been a lot of echo and a lot of noise going on, and every time we clicked that shutter, it seemed like everybody was looking at us wondering what that noise was. So I think that with a silent mode, we'll be a little bit more confident shooting in those incredibly silent, echoey churches. I'm also excited about the autofocus. It's saying that 90% of your frame will be covered with autofocus points, which means you can focus on people or subjects or anything all the way to the edge of the frame, which is pretty exciting for me. I'm just a little bit curious about how well those autofocus points work because we rely so heavily on autofocus, especially during dancing and walking down the aisle and things like that. We just can't afford to miss any of those shots. So there's two different kinds of autofocus. There's phase detection and then there's contrast autofocus, and they work differently. And the phase detection is a lot better, faster, more accurate, and a lot of mirrorless cameras just use contrast. But I think a lot of the newer ones are kind of making it a hybrid where it uses phase detection and contrast and uses them together. So autofocus is super important. 90% of the frame is good, but I want to make sure that those points are accurate and fast. Another thing I'm excited about is the 5-axis image stabilization, which means that the sensor itself is moving around and it's compensating for any vibrations or shaking. Traditionally with Nikon, this was done in the lens, but now it's in the camera, which means that every single lens you put on it will have the vibration reduction, which is awesome for shooting with slower shutter speeds and also smooth video. All of the custom function buttons on the camera are also pretty cool. I hate diving through menus and searching through things when I'm trying to take pictures. One thing I'm not excited about and is actually deterring me quite a bit is the lack of 2 card slots. One thing we talk to our couples about is how careful we are with our images and how we are backing them up from the second we take them until we deliver them. So when we shoot a wedding, we're shooting images on 2 different cards because cards do corrupt and you do lose images. We've been doing this for 200 weddings and we've never lost a wedding day. We have lost cards, but because they've been backed up, we've never lost the images themselves. So with one card, if that one card goes bad before you can back it up at home, then you've lost that wedding day. And I do not want to have that conversation with the bride. So I'd much rather have 2 card slots than just one. Besides the 1 card slot and the decreased battery life, I think I'm going to like this camera a lot. The Z6 is coming in right under $2,000 and the 50mm 1.8 is about $500. So for $2,500, you can get a professional level camera that's awesome in low light. So by the end of a wedding day, when I'm tired of carrying around my D750 with the grip and my 135 lens, I think I'm going to welcome this camera. It's small, it's light, it's great in low light. Hopefully the autofocus works well. And it's just gonna be a welcome break from that big DSLR I'm used to carrying. So those are most of my thoughts on the Z6 and the Z7 and mirrorless cameras in general. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're gonna pick one up and let me know what questions you have. I plan on getting one and doing a hands-on review, so just let me know what you wanna know about. Also, I want to make sure you guys are following me on social media. I feel like a lot of my YouTube followers aren't crossing over onto Instagram and Facebook, and I want to make sure you're doing that because next month in September, we are going to be doing a lot of giveaways and announcing some big things. So I want you to keep an eye out for these free things we're giving away. It might even be some cameras or lenses. We're still discussing all of that. So make sure you're following us on social media as well as just subscribing on YouTube. And as always, let me know what you want to know more about. What do you want me to make some videos about? Do you want me to make how-tos? Do you just want me to review things? What do you want? Let me know and I'll see if I can do it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back in November with the Z6.